Angle, I welcome you all to today's talk, which is a part of Firefly CII flagship event. Firefly is a 2 month long event that is aimed at nurturing entrepreneurial spirit, leadership qualities, and industry awareness among its participants. This will be achieved through various talks, webinars, and workshops over the course of Firefly. All of these will be concluded into a hackathon at the end of 2 months, where participants can put their newly acquired knowledge to test and build solutions to industry oriented problem statements. Today's event will consist of a talk followed by a question and answer session where some of you will get an opportunity to ask your questions to our speaker. Today we have someone with us whose journey is extremely unique and at the same time very inspirational. I would like to extend a warm welcome to our esteemed speaker for today, Mr. Aditya Arora, who is an angel investor and the CEO of our network, committed to supporting the youth in achieving their dreams by following their passion. He has been invited to speak and deliver guest lectures at 300 plus institutions globally and has been recognized as a successful young entrepreneur and achiever on various national and international platforms, receiving the Indian Parliamentary Meritorious Award, Indian Achievers Award, Duke of Edinburgh International Award, and Parliamentary Award, as well as nominations of Forbes 30 Under 30 and Padma Shri, for which he is the youngest nominee. There's so much more that I would love to talk about, but I'm sure I am speaking for everyone here when I say that we can't wait to listen to you speak and deliver your valuable insights. So without further ado, over to you, Aditya, to share your wonderful journey with us.
Got it. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, team, for having me here, and a very warm welcome to everyone who's listening as well. And greetings to everyone who are connected through with us and listening this on various channels. I hope all of you are keeping safe and taking care of yourself. Um, and of course, a bit about me. I think more has been spoken by the organizers, and I can't add much to it. That's been the quick journey. But of course, behind of course all the credentials is more of someone who never wanted to do entrepreneurship in the first place, and someone who wanted to sort of move on along a very conventional path, which in fact I was preparing hard for right from early days. But as they say, life happens and life throws surprises at you, and you need to of course be vigilant, and you need to be very quick steadfast and strong in your approach as well if you want to make use of opportunities that come. And that is how my journey also started. I come from a very middle class background, um, and never wanted to, of course, become an entrepreneur. My first childhood dream was to become a cricketer. That was way in school. And then, of course, when I went to when I was there in my class 11th and 12th, then I was open to the world of finance and investing, and that is where the fascination came in as to how I can, of course, add more value to finance, and how I can learn more about an important area of life, which is of course application of finance. So I prepared. I was looking for opportunities, and that is where I think RBI quiz. RBI came up with the national literacy quiz for school students way back then, and the prize was, of course, to meet the then governor of RBI, was Mr. Raghuram Raj. And it was, in fact, that made me even more excited that I need to study more. I need to study hard about finance. I studied for the next 3 4 months everything about RBI, everything about what is monetary policy, what is CRR, SLR. Just recently, of course, our MPC meeting, the annual MPC meeting was happening. So what is the difference between a repo rate and a reverse repo rate? Why do RBI need to give money to banks? And why do banks need to borrow money from RBI? Nuances of all of this, and why was RBI set up and everything. So I learned that for the next 3 4 months very rigorously. I read reports, I read manuals. That opened me even more towards a fascination, more towards what is finance and how I can use that in my everyday life. So I realized that I need to continue this passion further, and that is when I started studying more, and I realized that there is a B school, undergrad B school, where there's a specific degree of finance and investment. It's a new degree. It's a relatively new college as per Delhi University, but it's got quite a lot of value in the last 5 or 10 years. And that is when I made that to my dream college. I knew that getting an entrance and everything was very hard. Of course, most of people who are listening to us right now are engineers, so I don't need to tell you the harsh realities of an entrance examination. You already know that. So yeah, I kind of studied hard to try to study hard through it, and of course got a good AIR as well. Got into my dream college, and that is when, of course, it was everything was going good as per then. I thought that my life is set. Of course, I'll get a good job package from here, and then from that I'll do it for some time, then give a master's abroad, and then maybe come back and look for a different job after that. So life was very set, very poised at that point of time. But I don't know, something stuck in me when I realized that most of the business schools are not actually teaching business, or not actually like telling how to do business in the practical world. And that is when I realized that that is not what I came for. I came for my passion of studying finance, investment, and all of that. So why should I not continue that further? So then for the next 2 or 3 odd months, I keep looking for entrepreneurs around Delhi University. I met a couple of entrepreneurs as well. We brainstormed on a couple of startup ideas. We started, in fact, a few startup ideas as well. And those of that, of course, to till date, some ideas are successful businesses as well, which are running. So that gave me a worldview as to how startups, of course, can be something that I can work towards, where I could utilize my knowledge of finance, and also deal with people, which was something that I love. So then I was looking for more opportunities, more sustainable long-term business, that more organizational support that I could back up to. And that is when, of course, FARD came into higher interns in my college. This is year 2016 I'm talking about, the second year of my college. And they were the job profile was, the internship profile was to um, be on the interview side of things. So interview, of course, notable startup founders who maybe are not doing good work but not getting recognition. So maybe try and find these underdogs, and give them more recognition and status. And also to learn about startup ecosystem, to answer about all the trending facts that are there, how many unicorns are there. Of course, now so we have more than 80 plus unicorns, but how, of course, funding works and everything. That is when I realized that I need to study all of these things. Though I could not answer them in the internship interview that happened, but I need to further study these things for the interviews that I will ask, because these would be a mix of technical plus non-technical questions too. So how would I be well prepared if I don't know what these terminologies means? So then the next again 2-3 months, I study hard, study every term that is out there. I kind of relived my days of preparing for the RBI quiz, where I was studying through everything that I did not know. And the next 2-3 months, I studied everything that was out there about startup funding, about how the startup ecosystem is growing in 2016 in India. So yeah, I sort of then started interviewing a few people, and I was of course improving with every interview. I was not the best public speaker which is out there. I was a very shy and introvert kid in school. So of course it took time to interview people and to ask them tough questions and to also make them feel comfortable in a tough environment. And but I think I kind of did justice to it. The next 3-4 months, I interviewed close to about 50 startup entrepreneurs, and I learned a lot from their journey. I learned also what is passionately following your startup life. What is the meaning of sacrificing things, sacrificing good enough life, and then coming ahead and going to do a startup. I was cribbing that I am leaving. I am not studying, focusing on my college academics. I've got an AIR. I've come to thousands and lakhs of students, of course, to come and study in my college. But why am I not, of course, studying hard? Why am I not preparing for a master's or getting a job? But when I listen to these queries, or when I listen to these stories of other entrepreneurs, the sacrifices they have done, that is when it opened up to me that this thing is all about passion, right? This thing is all about what you actually want to do in life. And again, I've been a crazy kid. If I love something to the core, I make it my absolute passion to sort of pursue that thing for the next 3 or 4 months. And that is when, of course, when I loved my 2 months of summer internship at FARD, I wanted to continue it further. And that is when I, of course, started working part time with college. So when the college used to, of course, get over by somewhere around afternoon, or I would say early evening, I used to go and do internship of late evening at FARD. So yeah, that's been the journey. We then I interviewed more entrepreneurs. We started publishing more stories. These stories, of course, started getting attraction and, of course, started becoming popular. That is when they started coming out in the mainstream media. And I started getting recognition more and more that there's this college kid, of course, who's passionate about startups and writing stories of entrepreneurs. And then the another thing happened as we at FARD we started doing a lot of community events as well. We realized that we are building a community through our articles, through our interviews, through our newspapers. But why not channelize that community to something of an offline driven activity as well, right? Why just be behind the tabloid? Why not of course see each other face to face? That is when we started doing a lot of these community events, networking events, business related events, knowledge events, but more so open networking sessions where entrepreneurs would come in, investors would come in, startups would come in. And in one of these sessions, I realized that startups, one of the core problem of startups is to find co-founders, right? And if they don't find good co-founders, they're not able to scale their business. They're not able to get funding for their business. They're not able to attract a good team around their business. I'm not saying that having a co-founder is must. There are a lot of solo founders who are doing absolutely great work. But then again, if you're having someone another partner alongside you, sometimes it helps. Sometimes it helps you to divide the load between the two of you. That is when I came up with the speed dating concept for co-founder matchmaking, where I paired up startups who were looking to find co-founders and co-founders who are looking to find startups, and met them on a speed dating platform, and then of course made that interaction and that marriage happen. That I did, and more so, of course, adding more bit of Bollywood to it. I did it on 14th of Feb, Valentine's Day, so it got more public attention that there's this, of course, college kid who may be single, but he's trying to match up two people, startups and co-founders. That is when again the name in the media, of course, started getting more popular. FARD as well started getting more attraction. We were a very small team again. I was the only intern who was selected from my college. So we started getting more and more popular, started getting more attention, and we realized that, of course, now we have to sort of work on a one specific thing. We can publish stories of entrepreneurs, but after a point of time, again, I started realizing that I want to do something else as well. That is one thing that's doing good. I'm publishing stories of more entrepreneurs, but now I want to help them in more way or the other, right? Not just limit at a social recognition. We want to empower them in some way. And I discussed with my founders, with my other partners as well, we brainstormed and we picked up investing as one of the verticals. They realized that there should be a focused approach of helping startups in India. Right? It should not be analogous where you are just, or asynchronous where you are just helping startups with everything under the hood. You should be very focused. So that is when I realized that investing is something that we can start with. We have a community of investors who have attended our open events in the past. So why not take these people, and we already have the startups whose stories we have published. Why not make the match happen? And if they are looking to raise funds, why not connect them, and we can empower them in a more better way. And my, of course, hidden intent was that I was a student of finance and investment, as I told you. So I realized that this is something that I could maybe utilize some of what I am studying from college, of course, to this, although I was not attending a lot of classes and everything. But whatever my application of investments and finances, I can maybe utilize my strength points here. And that is where, of course, we, for the next about 2 years, this is from start of, you can say, my almost the end of the second year, the end semester of the second year, and then of course till about the last semester, third year. So mine was of course a 3 years degree. So next 1.5 odd years, we're rigorously doing investments. We are making the match happen. The first deal that I got for, of course, the first deal that we did was a company called Clear Deco. And that again changed, that was, I think, that changed a lot of things in my life, where that became one of the fastest growing eyewear brand in India. And that also, of course, I worked very hard on that deal, and got commitments from it. So it took me 6 months although to close that deal. But I think the conviction with which I led that transaction, and the conviction with which I think I got our investor community to support that deal. That of course got me a lot of confidence that I can do something. But more so importantly, a lot of confidence in my co-founders and partners, who realized that this kid is something, maybe, I don't know. It would sound more like a narcissist, but maybe this kid has something unique. He can figure out companies early age, and they can grow to the next level. So that again, it's clear there was a long separate story. I think it's a discussion for some other day, or maybe if it comes in question, I'd love to elaborate that further. But by the end of second year, we did about 5 odd deals, investment deals. Took us a lot of time, 1.5 years to do just about 4 or 5 transactions. But I think with one success story in 1.5 years, we were very poised to it. We were very happy about it. Then of course, since I was working very hard with FAD, we was building up team and everything, and it was a very small team, and we realized that we are just starting up investments now, and we want to continue investments further. So it was literally day zero for us. That is when they realized that I need to be brought full time into the company. And that is when I think a magical thing happened, where I was offered the role of the CEO of FAD, to lead the investment vertical fully, to build the investors, to also build a pipeline of startups, and help startups find good quality investors, and build a model for that as well. The first challenge, when the job role was given to me, in my job opportunity, in my job description as well, there was one thing written, which was, you have to solve the problem of turnaround time, wherein it took us 1.5 years to do 5 deals. We have to come up with something where we can do faster deals, we can do more quality deals, and we can be more active in the ecosystem. So I took that challenge, and I took the job as well. Very tough decision, of course, to not go for a high-end corporate job, which was offered to me, of course, which I could have got if I would have sat for placements in my college, versus, of course, going to a company which was just starting up in the investment space, and was a very small name, of course, back then. But yeah, I think I took the plunge. That's how it happened. I had no rationale or no logic. Any sane mind would say, "Why are you risking everything? And after you've gone to a good college, why are you starting up maybe something in the investment side? You're not even experienced. You're just 21 at that point of time. How can you, of course, justify your position of becoming a CEO?" So all that question happened. Criticism started to, of course, flow in. As you know, we live in a world where criticisms come before appreciation, and sometimes they never come. The appreciation never comes on, only the criticism flows. So everything happened. It was a tough fight with the parents as well. As I told you, no one from my family is in business background. It's very middle class family. They are very conservative in respect to the career choices you make. So it was a tough decision, but somehow I took the plunge. And then my problem again, the focus problem was to build the investor to build something, a model where we could fund more sort of startups at a breakneck pace. And the next, again, 1.5 years, if I talk about, it's been a beautiful journey up until now. Uh, I devised a model where the initial thing that we were doing, where we were connecting startups with investors, that took a lot of time. But now I realize that when we were doing that, the 2 3 problems we were facing was, one, that we were connecting them individually to each and every one person. This took a lot of time because everyone has their own schedule, everyone has their own comfort of course doing a meeting, and it took us a lot of time. Second, I realized that we are not investing our own capital, and that is why it sometimes it becomes difficult for me to convince any other investor that put in your own capital when I'm not putting mine capital, right? So sometimes it looks like I don't even believe the concept what I'm saying because I haven't invested in my own skin. I don't have skin in the game. So how could I convince someone else to get a piece of the pie? Those are the two problem sets I realized, and that is when from FARD we became FARD Network, where what we changed the entire model that we are a network of investors. When I say we also started investing our own personal capital, right? And that capital came in from the investors who we had built the community and association over the course of 2 or 3 years. Then, of course, we had startups who came in, of course, and startups quality kept getting better and better as we grew the investor community ahead. Long story short, the last 2 years, guys, last year alone, we funded about 32 companies, right? And in fact, we were Economic Times um, fastest growing angel network in India, right? We were one of the most active investment communities in India by Economic Times. That happened, right? So again, I said, from 4 deals in 1.5 years to about 32 deals in 1 year. Been a crazy ride. And this year, in fact, we've changed and modeled. I've changed something another again this year, and I hope that that kind of creates more results where we're pitching more startups, we are moving towards more technology, and we are moving towards more transparency and democracy with respect to investing in startups. So this is again a very I would say a very crucial year, but yeah, I look forward to it. But yeah, that's been the journey over the course of time. I work very closely with an education sector because I believe that education in your mind reaps no interest, be it simple or compound. But if you share it with someone else, the results are definitely compound on both the sides. So throughout this course, I've spread knowledge on education. I've spread knowledge on financial literacy. I try to spread knowledge in startups through the various efforts that I do, both with myself and various organizations, including the Delhi government as well. I've been a part of so many programs that have come up in around entrepreneurship. And in fact, one of my programs is now a scheme as well under Delhi government, which is entrepreneurship mindset curriculum, and is now being adopted by other states as well, where every day students are being taught entrepreneurship as a compulsory period in school. And this is not through textbooks, but through experiential learning, through remedial learning, through a lot of knowledge and insights by real entrepreneurs themselves. So that's been the journey. For that, of course, I've received tons of accolades, which the team spoke in the introduction. But yeah, the I would say, to end it before I start taking questions, I think I would end it with this: that the real Aditya, of course, is someone who is still figuring out, who's still learning as the things go along. Of course, now I'm the CEO of a much more larger investment company where the name is known, and of course the investments are also happening at a breakneck space. But I'm still that Aditya. That still I would say that person who's still 24 right now and who wants to learn further and who wants to maybe of course impact more and more people. I'm more convict. I have more conviction in my approach. I have more confidence in what I do right now. I know that it's day zero. Anything can happen any day. But I think one thing that I would want to say is that it's not easy for anyone. But if you start somewhere, that is when I think you start to appreciate the hardness as well that comes along with it. And the hardness is important before, of course, you move it. Nothing comes on a silver plate to anyone. Yeah, that's been my journey. That's Aditya Arora for you, and I would love to take more questions.
Yeah, thank you so much, Aditya. That was a wonderful journey. Yeah, so I have a question. Since you mentioned you have come across a lot of startups in the last 3 to 4 years, so what is the one thing you see across all the startups which is lagging and they could have improved a lot? And what do you feel about that?
So, see, startups, of course, are coming at a really fast pace right now. every minute or so, a startup is getting registered in India. Um, One thing that I think has been the challenge, which I see a commonality amongst every startups that we potentially look at for investment, is that a lot of startups are building repeatable business models or repeatable service areas where solution already exists and no real innovation is happening. For example, I'll give you an example. Someone is trying to maybe create the next Paytm, where a Paytm already exists, but someone is trying to maybe imitate a copy and trying to maybe think that they'll execute it better than them. Now, I'm not saying they might not, they may, but then the actual purpose of startups is to create something which is either an improvement or an innovation. And in some cases, I see nothing. And that is when I reject most of the startups, right? We evaluate close to about 350 startups in just a month, right? And we choose about just 3 or 4, right, to pitch in a month. So the odds of selection are like highly skewed towards you not being selected. So if you're not building on the innovation and execution side of things, if you're just building a business where you think you can copy the market, the business model, or maybe the execution, that never happens for me. Yeah.
All right. So Vamshi, you can go ahead. You can unmute and ask the question.
Right. Thank you. Hi, Aditya. It was a great journey. Your talk was very helpful. Thank you. So, this is a kind of a cliched question. You might have gotten this a lot, but this is something we ask every investor or VC comes, right? What is something that you look at while investing in a startup, and what are sort of the red flags that you look for that say if you find this, then there's no way you're investing, however good the business model is?
Yeah. think I would have touched the Guinness Book of World Records for answering this question because I've answered it at almost every place that I go. And I love this question because every time when I answer this, I sometimes think that can there be a better way? Can there be a metric that I'm missing? But again, I would love to again experience that if I'm missing anything today. But for me, it's basically a 5T approach that I follow, right? Where the first T is about team. That's the foremost important thing that I'm looking to invest in. I'm not looking to invest in presentations. I'm not looking to invest in Excel sheets. I'm going to invest in people, right? That's the first thing. People who have a vision to solve and who know what they are trying to solve. That's the first thing. So the red flag also comes in as a catalyst, or you can say as an auxiliary to this, where if a person does not know what they are trying to solve, the person is, let's say, trying to copy this thing for the sake of it. That is when again I would back out from that investment. Secondly, is timing. The timing is again is very important. If I, let's say, launch an app for a grocery delivery today, it might not be so popular, right? Because again, you're saying that it's way past your time. But let's say if I launch an app today, which is, let's say, which is a cloud gaming startup, right? Although we are in the midst of course, looking at such companies. Let's say if I launch a cloud gaming infrastructure company today, and I say that this is a company that, let's say, I want to invest in, maybe it may be a bit ahead of its time too. You never know. Or maybe a hyperloop kind of a technology which Elon is building for the world. Maybe if I build it from India, it's a bit ahead of its time. You never know what's the future gonna look like. That is again a red flag. Third is what I call as a technology. We live in a technology oriented world. More so after COVID, it's I think digital first and offline second. So how are you leveraging technology to improve your communications? How are you leveraging technology to um, get your customers in the best way possible, solve their problems in the best way possible? That is where we look at an advent and a conflux of technology. Then I think the third thing for me is a target market. That's a basic thesis driven understanding. When I'm saying that, what solution are you building for what target market, be it what age group, what income category, what geography, what demographics. So whatever that ideal customer profile is, I should know that these are your customers. And that is, I think, brings me to the what is team, technology, timing. Then of course is traction. Traction is the performance that you're doing, because sales is the best form of validation for anything. Even if you say I have the best of product, but if people are not paying for it, sorry, you have a best of product, but I don't think the customers believe it to be so. And customers are the king. So that is, I think, the thing. And last is a very nuanced way, which is more of a terms of investment that I look at. If it's a company where I think the terms are justified, the growth is there. You would have seen this a lot in Shark Tank as well. How much equity, of course, what valuation, what instrument are you looking to raise at, whatever, right? Although most of the Shark Tank deals happen on equity. So What are the terms of investment? Is it fairly priced according to how the company is growing? That is the last thing that I look at. Another red flag that I look for is I invest only in growing companies and in massive growth companies. I would not invest my companies which can grow but can grow just 4% or 5% in a year. If I would have to do that, I would have invested my money in probably an FD which would give me 6 or a savings bank which will give me 4. But I invest my money in high growth companies which can give me at least 12 to 15% in a year. Again, I know it's a risky investment. It's not an assured return, but I would want to look at such companies where I think the potential could be a 12%, 15% monthly annual return, and then of course a 3 or 4 times quarter, let's say a 3 years post return. That is where I would like to drive most of my investments and red flags onto as well. Oh, I hope that answers the question for you, Mansi.
Yes, so we have one more question in the chat. What's your basis for validating the idea of a startup?
So again, similar to what I answered the previous question, the basis for evaluation is simple. The idea is something which is either an improvement or an innovation. It should be either of that. Secondly, the idea should be something which solves a real problem. It's not that that idea solves a very specific or a very niche community. That idea should be something on which you can, let's say, build a massive audience around it. That is where I think the idea is there. And again, the timing of the idea is very important, and more so the person who's executing that idea. That also is a very important aspect. That whether that idea is good, right? That idea is fantastic, but whether that person has the gusto or the willingness to execute that idea, that is, I think, a separate thing and one of the most important things.
All right. Yes, Arnav, you can go ahead with the question.
Hello.
Yes, you are audible here.
Yeah. Aditya, I wanted to know. So, like, when you guys invest in a startup, do you also further follow up for the portfolio management, or it's just like a one-time investment?
I'm glad you asked this question because a lot of people think that once you've invested in a startup, the things end there. But actually, our work starts when you invest in a startup, right? That is the start of the things for us. Once you invest in a startup would not just raise capital one time. They would want to raise it They had to raise it multiple times in order for them to increase their valuation. So one is, of course, access to the next rounds that you want to raise. We participate in some of our companies as well. Let's say, for example, I participated in one of my companies called Blue Smart, where it was doing really well. It's an EV cab service where it's like an Uber but only electric vehicle driven. So we invested in their seed, but we invested even at 3 times more portion in the next round. So there are access to more rounds. And second is the beauty of creating this network is that we are not playing ourselves around just 3 or 4 portfolio companies. It's about 52 right now. So some of the companies can benefit each other, can add to or play to each other's strengths and can derive a lot of common business value. That is where we come in, where we make that match happen. Wherein we say that, of course, we play with the strengths, and if any startup can, let's say, help the other portfolio company in some way or the other, that is also the thing that happens. This is on the startup side of things. But look at from the investor side of things as well, right? You have made an investment, you would want to be updated regularly. You would want to get the quarterly updates or the regular updates of how the company is performing. You would
Yeah.
want to see that how much your percentage share has increased. These are all questions where transparency does not exist in India today. You invest in a mutual fund, you have transparency that this is how much your, let's say, the mutual fund is growing. Or let's say you invest in stocks, you see the chart every day, you know how much your portfolio is in red or green. But in startups, you don't have the transparency, right? So that is the kind of transparency we are building. We already provide that in a way, and we want to, of course, I think build it further with the advent of technology.
Great. Thank you.
Yes. Vedantam, you can go ahead with the question.
Yep. Hi Aditya, and thank you for coming. You are someone like whom I have always looked up to. So my question is, in the startup environment, there is this one quote which is very famous: "Build fast and fail fast, and that is how you learn to grow." But how does idea validation and pre-building stage comes into the picture, and how do we actually connect these two things?
See, first of all, thank you so much for your kind words. Secondly, See, there are a lot of course, quotes that are a misnomer to this whole startup community, where 90% of startups fail, or of course, like fail fast and all this. Again, I'm not saying that these are wrong quotes. These are good quotes, but I think don't build something in a fast trajectory as well, in a very fast trajectory that you can handle, and don't build it in a slow as well. Build it at the right pace. When you cook a vegetable, if you cook it at faster flame, you would burn the nutrition element of it. If you cook it at very slow flame, you will get all the, of course, nutritional benefit of it, but again, it would take a lot of time. So if you don't have that time, you somehow adjust. You try to adjust the knob between, let's say, a high flame, of course, to a low flame. You simmer, right? You then you move into a simmering stage. I would say simmer in that startup. That's very, very important. You want to build fast, go ahead and build it as fast as you can, but then build it only when you have A, the knowledge of what you are building, B, the research to back what you are building, and third is the conviction in A and B, right? The research, the knowledge, and the conviction in research and the knowledge, right? So once you have that, then only you go ahead and sort of build fast or scale faster. But if you don't have that, if you're not thorough with your business model, if you're not thorough with what you want to exactly do, or if you haven't cracked out your what works for your audience or what does not work, then don't go ahead and do it. We've seen so many startups. That some one startup, of course, in the edtech space is in news. They raised a Series C round, an edtech startup, but they shut shop because they were not able to figure out their cash flow. They were not able to figure out their business model, and kind of did not work after some point of time. That is where I think that it's very important that you move into a simmering stage where you cook it at the right flame, but you move ahead with conviction and confidence that this is what I'm cooking and it's going to be damn delicious, what I'm having today. Yeah.
Thank you very much. That really helps.
Thanks a lot.
Right. Yeah. So we have a question in chat. When is the right time for a product-based company to reach out to investors?
See, there is no one answer to it, right? Because investors are there at a pre-product stage as well. Investors are there at a product stage. Investors are there at a post-product stage. Investors are there at a product growth stage. Investors are there at almost every level of your product journey, right? So it's I think there's no one answer to it. It depends on when do you actually want to go ahead and you want to raise that gasoline. We all of us are playing have played car games. I'm sure we would have at some point of time. We always press the nitro or the boost, not maybe every time in the race, but more so specifically when we are nearing toward the end of the race, because that is when we realize that this is the kind of distance I want to cover. This is the speed I have attained to, and also how many people are, let's say, above or behind me. That is going to get an exact calculation of where do I stand in the race. Once I'm starting the race, I'm in the middle of it. There's no predictability. Anything can happen. But once I'm nearing, again, then also there's no predictability. But again, there is certain element of calculation that happens towards the end, which does not happen at the start or the beginning. That is when you press the nitro and you try to win the race from the end, because you realize that the timing is important. Right? You get nitro boosts which are limited, so you want to utilize it towards the end. That is when you cautiously use it towards the end. Similarly to startup funding, you know that you could maybe invest this money, you could be ahead of the race with your own capital too, or maybe you don't need a nitro, you don't need any capital. So why to then go ahead to an investor and then chase funding? Maybe push the race, buy your own clutch, accelerator, and brake. Don't use a nitro, don't use a third party, don't use any booster. Win the race naturally. Build your startup naturally. Invest your own capital. Maybe invest your friends or family, or just not the external capital. Keep everything internal. And then when you're nearing towards, then you need to think that now you can crazy grow from here. You have initial level of traction that you're winning the race. You have a confidence. Otherwise, if you're lagging in the race, then towards the end of the race also using nitro does not make sense. Nothing magically would happen with a nitro. But once you know that you are maybe in the top 5, you are getting traction for it. You've raced the race very, very good, That is when you are sure of it, you go ahead and you take the funding. That acts like a booster to your growth plans where you can grow crazy from it. I think that is how you sort of try and raise it for a product startup too. An early level of traction, which is out there, where customers are paying for it. There is certain level of element that it will, of course, go ahead and work it. The product works, and then you need funding and also assistance on how you can win the race. So that is where I think it's the ideal time to raise capital.
All right. So along with this, so what can be the different methods to reach out to investors?
So I'll tell the top two, three ones. There are n number of course, with social media, there are so many methods that social medias are unlimited and methods are also. So one is, I think the best method that works is always the referral. So if you know, let's say a portfolio founder of a start of an investor, right? Maybe approach him through that or her through that. That is a referral, or maybe you find some common connection between whatever. Second way is the networking way, wherein through online meets like these, or through, of course, physical meets, which I am assuming will start happening now since the COVID wave is subsiding. So through physical meets, you meet with a lot of these investors, you talk about what you are actually doing, what you want to build, and then you network your way out of it. Try and maintain a healthy networking relationship. Try seeing for a more like-minded person you can connect with for a long-term basis. Right, that's the purpose of networking. Not anything magical would not happen in the next 2 minutes if you network with a person. It's an equity. It's like an equity. It's a long-term relationship. It will give rewards in the long term. So that is, I think, how you invest at networking. That is second. And third, of course, is your social media routes which are out there, which is social, of course, cold emailing, cold messaging, cold DMing, whatever you call it. So that is, I think, the third way. But I would suggest the referrals is 70% or 80% of the deals that I invest in are through referrals. So that's the harsh reality of it.
All right. Yes, you can go ahead with the question.
Yeah, thank you. I have a question. Like, what do you see in the person, like like he has the potential to execute an idea? Like, he may be in dilemma that he's going to make it like a successful startup. Like, so what do you look in qualities?
In person, I look at primarily top two and three things. One is their vision with the whole startup, right? Their vision with what they want to do. If the vision is not clear, anything is not clear. Or maybe the vision is too small. Or maybe the vision is it's too big. Too big, of course, is good, but of course, there's a fine balance between everything. Should be a vision, it should not be an exaggeration. So that is, I think, the foremost thing I look at. Second thing that I look for is their team playing abilities. Can they build a right team? Because for me, I know that founders are the leaders, but they are not the only persons on which the success of a startup relies. Right? Success of a startup truly comes in when they start hiring people and when the people start to work with them. So how can they build a team? Are they good team players? Are they good with people? That is again very, very important aspect for me. And the last thing is a very selfish thing, but I think this is that one thing that I should have is they should also be respecting me, what I bring to the table. They should also be respecting my work as well. And more than that, they should be open and transparent to me, right? That even if, let's say, they're not doing well, or even if, let's say, they've maybe fallen short of what their targets were, please, they can count on me as more of a friend, or more of course, someone who understands, and not just like tell me the good parts, right? Tell me the bad parts, the ugly parts as well. That is, I think, the three things that I look for while investing in a company.
All right. Yes, you can go ahead with the question, Anshul.
Okay. Hi Aditya. My question is, you are from a middle class background, like most of us. So, how did you generate enough capital for your initial investments?
So again, as I told you, how the model was structured was um, that at FAD we realized that we have to invest capital in startups because otherwise we would not have skin in the game. So we kind of course, started looking for people who can support us as well in that journey, where coming up with a model was simple that we would not invest, let's say, the largest check in any company. We would play it, diversify it in, let's say, across 60 or 70 or whatever companies that we end up getting up to. We will have smaller pies in these companies, but then the idea of a pie would be to have skin in the game, even if it is some, even if it, let's say, just a finger, but at least have some skin in the game. So one was to, of course, reduce your check sizes so that you have more bandwidth to spread across multiple startups. And second was to find investors who can back us as well, who can say that, okay, you invest your capital and we would try and drive that fuel for you. Where you would say that, okay, some of your capital in good opportunities maybe can come through your name, but the source maybe could be from us. So multiple models of course, figuring it out. But that is how we try to drive it. And the last thing that we did was we picked up on our winners very, very quickly. Those winners gave us money early on. And with that capital, rather than taking it home, we kind of reinvested that back again into a lot of these companies in their success and in their, of course, future development. That is how it's all just a, I would say, a most of a two ways is one is getting a good community, and second is a capital rotation, which happens where, of course, you pick up your winners and then you put in more capital, you generate more money, and then you put it across multiple companies. So I hope that answers Anshu.
Thank you.
Yeah, there is a question in chat. Do you invest at the idea stage or a developed stage?
At idea stage, we refrain from investing at a concept stage. It's not that we haven't, we have invested in idea stages as well. But these are founders who we know personally, who we know they have executed in the past. We don't take a bet on idea stage at founders who we don't know are first time founders. Very less, although in just 2 or 3 deals we would have done out of the entire lot of 52 where they would have been idea stage investments. We again, since I told you that the best time to raise an investment is once you have got a level of validation from a customer that this thing works. So that is when you are already in development phase. That is the kind of stage we want to enter.
Yes, Vamshi, you can go ahead.
Hi again. So there's a question on YouTube by Atharva. He asks, is there anything fundamentally common in the startups which have grown to become unicorns in the recent years?
Very, very good question. Fundamentally common, I think all of the startups which have become unicorns, I would say most of the startups that I have started in their unicorn story, they figured out their target customers very, very well. You look at Paytm, they knew who their target customers are. And Paytm is a different story. So Oyo, you kind of know their target audiences. A lot of these new age unicorns that are becoming, let's say even in crypto space or in the edtech space or let's say in the food delivery space, they all know who their customer profile is. They have a way to get around their customers. They can extract more value from their customers. They can satisfy their customers to a larger extent as well. And more than that, they have a good branding and messaging which relates with the company's values too, which even satisfy customers to the last extent. So all of these unicorns have cracked that customer case study very, very good. That is where I think that a lot of unicorns have become very, very quick. They know what their playbook is. They know what their strategy is going to look like because they know their customers from day one. So they've played their cards accordingly. They've raised funding rounds accordingly. They have, in fact, taken investors accordingly who can add those values in reaching to their target customers. So they know their end destination, and they've just built out a good playbook to build that. If I take the example of, let's say, Dream 11, they knew who their target customers was. By the time people were complaining about whether this is legal, illegal, gambling money, or is it, let's say, a knowledge-based assessment, which they call, they were already unicorn in 1.5 years, right? So they knew that they are chasing after a market which knows that they want to invest in people. They don't want to actually gamble. They want to make money by investing in stars, by investing in their favorite cricketers. That is how they grew massively in 1.5 years, one of the fastest growing unicorns. Similarly to Udan, similarly to Mensa brands, knew how their final customers are and how they're going to approach that. So yeah, I hope that answers.
Yes. We have one more question in chat. Sir, if you invested a lot of money on a startup and later we found that the same idea startup already exists, then what kind of decision should we make?
So it's again, as I said, nothing that comes up to me today is unique in a sense. Everything is something which I have seen in some shape or form or the other. So again, if I find out later that someone is building something unique or something similar to us, I would not say that let us start shutting shop and let us not do it, or maybe let us maybe talk to that founder and say, don't do your business. You can't do that, right? So one is to, of course, first step is to do a good due diligence. That is something that all the investors do, where they figure out what the competition analysis is and then do something accordingly. That is one thing that we do as before making an investment. That is when the research and knowledge comes in, that I told you. Second is, even if someone tomorrow comes up to me and say maybe they does something different, I know that you can copy the idea, but you can never copy the execution, right? So many people tried to do an Uber model. So many people tried building something like Oyo in India. So many people tried building something like a Paytm in India. They failed, right? So much of venture capital money also went in. It drained down. Nothing could be built out of it because you can always copy the idea of it, but you can never copy the execution, right? If I want to, let's say tomorrow that I want to open up a food delivery business, I would not be able to copy their execution. I can create an app. We can create a similar app. Would not take us a lot of capital. We can hire some delivery partners as well. Maybe just tell them. But I can't copy their execution. I can't copy how they process it, how the algorithm they built in behind, in terms of route optimization, or in terms of order delivery assessment, in terms of, let's say, restaurant to delivery partner NPS scoring, all technical terms. But the reason I'm saying is I can't figure out these things because these guys have cracked it and have been doing it for so many years. They've learned through their failures. You guys are all engineers. You know that if you have to write a good code, one of the fastest ways to do this is when you, of course, try to work it multiple times. Then you realize that these are the kind of algorithms that are lagging in my code, or this is a line item that I've written wrong. This is where, let's say, an error has come in. That is when you improve, when you run it multiple times. Similarly, these guys have run it multiple times. I don't know on day one whether I can do that. So that is why an idea can be same, but in hindsight, execution I know is massively different between a Zomato and someone who's just starting out for the first time.
Yeah. Okay, the last question. Can you name one startup which you think which will be making big in the near future, which is not so famous right now?
All my portfolio companies. So not one, but yeah, all these companies are doing really, really well. We've already started seeing success at our companies like Blue Smart, which raised the largest round for any EV startup in India in an early stage. So a lot of these companies, of course, have started doing well. Stones to milestones in EdTech. I can go on and on about some of the companies that are doing massively, massively well. But again, as a father, you can't pick up your best child. Every child that you have is best. So all these companies, I'm sure, would go ahead and make some certain impact.
Right. And what's your take on the students coming up with new startups and right after the college and not taking the placement and going towards entrepreneurship?
Say it's good progress. In fact, even in college, startups are raising so much capital. Young students are building so much communities in college. I remember one of my friends, Harish, is built Blue Learn out of Bits Pilani. Again, Bits Goa, sorry. It's Bits Goa, sorry, not Pilani. So, good things that are coming up. Good technologies that are coming up. Good startups which are coming out of school students. So many of these school students, which are college students, which are doing massively, massively well, especially in college with the access to the community and the network that they get. I would say that if you are someone who's looking to, let's say, start a startup in college, say go ahead and explore, because if you don't explore, you can never know whether you will be successful or not. If I wouldn't have explored out of my own, of course, comfort zone, I would have not been here talking to all of you guys, or maybe doing investments that I do. So sometimes you have to, of course, go to a different path if you want to do something different in life. You have to stand apart from others, right? You have to go where maybe the others haven't gone if you want to do something different. Otherwise, it would not happen in your normal course. You would continue, you would finish your degree, you would ideally, of course, get a good, get some job from here. You would work in that job for so long. After that, maybe if you want to go to masters later, you would go that again. Then again, you will go to a job. You never had that thought again of starting up, right? And so explore this in college. Try and figure out, of course, learn, gather that experience. Don't just jump in for the sake of jumping it as well. Jump in only when you have conviction, and once you think that you can go ahead and execute it. Till that time, keep building your prototypes, keep experimenting, keep learning from people, and then only go ahead and make a conscious strategy. But then just don't be afraid of making mistakes as well. And just go ahead and execute it. That is all I would say to all of you.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Aditya. Vamsi, would you like to take over?
Yeah. So, on behalf of Center for Innovation and Incubation at NIT Warangal, I'd like to extend a hearty vote of thanks to Mr. Aditya Arora for taking out the time to be here with us. Aditya, thank you so much. You've been very generous with your time. It's been an absolute pleasure hosting you. And all the stuff you said have always, your achievements and the stuff you spoke have always inspired us. And I'm sure people who attended here and on YouTube learned a lot, and they'll put them to action. So yeah, thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, everyone, for listening, and wish you all the best. Would love to stay connected with you guys. If there's anything I could help with, feel free to reach out on social medias. More than happy to respond and help. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure being here.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Sir, one last question. Can you suggest on which ideas in the near future more startups will be?
It's a mix of sectors. No one particular sector on which any idea would be built. You have seen gaming, which is picking up. You're seeing crypto, NFTs, which is picking up. Beauty of India is that there is so much diversity. There's so much of market understanding. There's no one domain idea. So many new streams will come up. So keep building. And wish you guys all the best.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Aditya.
Thanks. I'd also like to thank all the participants who joined. And yeah, thanks for joining. Thanks for making the event great. All the best.